Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Adam Caplan and Geoff Mosher. Do you like that, by the way? I give you first billing sometimes. Every once in a while, I say your name first.
It's funny.
And then I wonder if I confuse people.
Yeah, right. It's on ESPN, the show that I was on, NFL Insiders. I'd always get like fourth billing. I was like kind of insulted. I was like, fine, I'm a schlep. I get it. Whatever.
No, not on this podcast. Yeah, I try to give you top billing on some tweets too sometimes.
I don't care, man. It doesn't matter at all. It's fun. It's funny though.
Well, listen, we got a really interesting podcast tonight. A reminder to everybody listening that we're going to start, going into next week to do our Monday, Thursday schedule, our off-season podcast schedule, Monday and Thursday. We're still working on some things that we plan to announce soon, but everything takes time and effort and energy, and we're putting it into it. And we hope to have some fresh new content ideas in the coming days and weeks, and we'll announce it when it's all official. So just keep an eye out for that. Make sure you're following at Inside Birds on Twitter and at Caplan NFL on Twitter and at Geoff Mosher and NFL on Twitter, because we'll be all over that. And then just keep listening to the pod. And also, before we get into a very kind of beefy podcast here on the Carson Wentz situation, we've got the Super Bowl on Sunday. Chiefs versus Bucs. I thought we had a really good ITB TV interview with the guru, John Hansen from fantasypoints.com, who he's not just, as people will learn, not just into fantasy sports. I mean, he's really good with the betting spreads, the lines, the over-unders, the props. And we went through some really interesting props with him, Adam, and he pointed out some ones that he really liked and some to avoid. So if people are looking to make a few bucks on Sunday in the big game, you got to listen to that ITB TV.
Yeah, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna listen to it. I will probably listen to the Android version on my phone, probably around 2:00 Eastern, and I'm gonna listen to the it's like 25-minute show, and
about 25.
I'm going to John's site. I'm gonna sync up his rankings with that show and hear him talk us through it. And I'm just gonna, I guess he said he's got a whole sheet on his website. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna go. I do this once a year. I get a little bit involved with the props. I love them. I think it's, it's all about understanding football, and I got to do well at these things. So I want to, I'll have some fun with it. I'm going to do it. I'll do it on the DraftKings Sportsbook app and have some fun with it.
Yeah, well, Guru likes an over on a certain Chiefs wide receiver not named Tyreek Hill, and his reasoning was pretty solid. So I got to make sure you're watching it on our YouTube. our YouTube platform, or listening to it on our podcast platform, because there was some really, really good stuff in there. All right, so we got a big deal with Carson Wentz to get into, Adam. I know a lot of people have been wondering when we were going to move away from coaching staffs and getting into Carson Wentz, but we needed time. Yeah, we're going to do it now. We needed time to let things develop, talk to sources.
Yeah.
And so we put up a story that you and I co-wrote on our website, InsideTheBirds.com, and it came out Thursday morning, which kind of detailed what we had heard and learned from talking to sources around the league, some pretty high-ranking sources too, as well. And I'll let you, kind of give in on it, on what we learned as well. But I'll just summarize it in this way before I turn it off to you. I think at one point during the season, when Carson got benched and we were analyzing his future, I'm sure we said it, and I know we thought it, that it would be very, very difficult to move Carson because of the massive cap hit. We even had Andrew Brand on one of our ITB TVs, and we talked about how difficult it would be. As we sit here and record this podcast, though, I at least am starting to get the feeling that Carson Wentz is going to be moved.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, like the Eagles, I mean, you never know what they're going to be offered, but I feel like the Eagles will get an offer and be very tempted to move him.
I do. I just think that they're motivated as much as I think it pains them. My sense has been, and I do want to mention one thing, and I knew this was not right when people were saying it, but it was just a gut feeling, but it turned out to be correct. You might remember when Doug Peterson was fired, within like hours, people said, there was some pretty substantial reporting on it, that this should end the speculation that Carson Wentz wants out. And I didn't say a word. I was like, this is not right, because I know that Carson it wasn't just Peterson he had problems with. It was an organizational issue. Based on what we had heard, it didn't sound like Carson felt like the team had his back. It wasn't just the benching by Peterson and his issues with the head coach, now the former head coach.
Right.
It was these reports and The NFL.com report, which is interesting about his practice habits, and he had to defend himself in a press conference. The criticism of the shots from his teammates to certain reporters around the country. That bothered him. Then
which goes back for a couple of years now. By the way,
yes. Listen, it hadn't stopped. Jalen Hurts drafting. I remember. I think it was Jay Glazer had the report that I think he talked about it. That was one of the factors, and maybe Wentz's issues with the club. So, look. If Carson doesn't have any issues with the team, they're not having these discussions. They've had, and we'll get into some of the teams and who we think is interested and so forth. But they're not doing this. But I understand Carson was bad last season. We get that. He was benched. He deserved to be benched. As a matter of fact, you could have made the argument he should have been benched well before he was wound up being benched. And look, the coaching was horrendous with this guy last season. I mean, everyone has a piece of it. The quarterback does, and the coaches. No, I don't absolve anyone. Okay?
I totally agree with that. Everybody, Carson too.
Listen, I don't, and I pride myself in not criticizing coaches, but I know way too much about what happened, and I just can't be silent on it. It's our job to tell people what we know, and we had our criticisms of Press Taylor, the head coach. For some godforsaken reason, thought this guy was qualified to coach this quarterback. That was obviously a terrible mistake. And Press Taylor has talent, but you have to know as a head coach that's not going to work with this quarterback. He's a type A who needs to be roughed up, needs to be challenged. This kid, Wentz came in, as we've outlined on our show, when he came in 16 was entitled. And this is something that they knew at the school at North Dakota State. He was a big man on campus. Everything went his way. And here, he was challenged by Wentz and DeFilippo, and that worked incredible. I mean, Reich and DeFilippo was challenged by Wentz. They challenged Wentz, and it worked.
Yep.
So to move this along here, you fast forward, and it's just I would say, let me ask you this question: would you call this a divorce or separation, or combination of both? Potentially, obviously.
Well, what's the difference between a divorce and a separation?
Well, separation is more of an amicable, like a divorce, a bitter divorce, or divorce where you're done with each other.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I would call it a divorce. It's not the ugliest divorce. It's not Antonio Brown and the Raiders.
Oh God,
it's not Le'Veon Bell and the Steelers, but it's not completely amicable because obviously there's fracture there. I do think that if it's done and Carson moves on, that bygones will be bygones and they'll move on, and that'll make it more amicable than ugly. You won't hear a lot of mudslinging or anything like that. But I think the bigger issue, Adam, is that I'm already looking into the future, right? I'm already expecting that he's going to get traded, and then there's going to be a press conference, and you're going to hear that, hey, look, sometimes this happens in the NFL. You're going to hear Earl Thomas left the Seahawks, and you're going to hear Rob Gronkowski, left the Patriots, and then when he wanted to come back to play with Tom, had to be traded. And I just can hear the organizational spin that, it doesn't mean that this is an unhealthy organization or dysfunction or something's wrong. It happens to even the best organizations like Seattle and New England. And I can hear it. I know it's going to be coming. Just like they try to rationalize everything that people might not understand at the time, like drafting a backup quarterback in the second round. I already feel it coming, and I'm safeguarding myself against it because this should never have happened. I think you and I can agree on this. This is not a good thing. Yes, everybody's culpable. Carson's culpable, the coaches, the management, everybody. But it's never a good thing when the guy that you traded up to number 2 to pick just, 5 years ago, and then helped lead you to a Super Bowl 3 years ago, and then signed a contract extension less than 2 years ago, is now out the door. That's not good, man. That's a really bad situation.
You summed up beautifully. I can't even add to it. That was about as good as anyone summed it up. It's embarrassing. Even if they get pretty good compensation, which, by the way, they will.
I agree.
We'll get into that too. But because guys like this, and I understand Wentz has issues. We've outlined them now for 2 years. The guy's incredibly gifted. Trust me on that.
Right.
That is not lost. It's just that he hasn't lost his talent. He's lost his way. There's a difference.
Yep. I totally agree with that. Absolutely. I love the way you phrase that. He hasn't lost his talent. He has lost his way. And the sad reality is he might very well get his way back for another team. And the Eagles may not have, and we'll kind of get into this as we move forward next week with our positional previews. But the Eagles have Jalen Hurts, but certainly after 4 games, that's no slam dunk. So you have to see if they can kind of find an answer to their quarterback question that they will have if they move on from Wentz.
It's fascinating because I was thinking about this a couple weeks ago. If they trade him, they would obviously get a first-round pick. It would just be crazy. Now we don't know where that would be, but they've got the 6th pick overall. I mean, it would be unheard of in NFL history. We'd have to look this up. As a team drafted a first or second round quarterback into back-to-back drafts.
Did the Cardinals do that with Rose? No, it wasn't. Rose and Murray was not back-to-back, was it?
Josh Rosen, Murray? No, definitely not.
How many years were in between? I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think he might have been there 2 years. I'd have to check. I have to check, but it's unbelievable that this could be happening. I understand why you would consider it if you're the Eagles and under that scenario, because you have to figure out again who your franchise quarterback is. And I just remember how important that 16 draft was for them to get a franchise quarterback. That's all Jeffrey Lurie would talk about internally. Yeah, he was right. That trip out west when they were chasing Goff and Wentz, and they knew flying back it was Wentz, and here we are, as you said, 5 years after. Now they're going to trade him most likely, I think.
Well, let's talk about that. How could Carson come back at this point? Like, let's really think about it.
Is there a scenario where he could come back, you mean?
No, I mean, I know there is a scenario where he could come back, but I feel like it's almost to the point now where the bridge has been burned. I mean, the city, if you listen to what's going on on the airwaves, I mean, not a lot of people are happy with Carson Wentz's decision to not talk. I feel like from some things that I've heard.
By the way, back-to-back, you're right. Back-to-back first round. Yeah, okay, you're right. Yeah, 18 Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray, first round, 19.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is pretty crazy. So
right.
I feel like the locker room probably is not as behind Carson's back as it was at one point. I mean, because of what's going on here. And so if you're Carson Wentz, even if you're the Eagles, right? Even if you're management and you don't love what you get and you're bringing Carson back, Carson Wentz goes out there and throws an interception or loses a game, it's going to be put Jalen Hurts in, or this guy's a bum, or he quit on. I mean, I honestly think the bridge has been burned at this point. It's going to be very difficult to bring Carson Wentz back into this environment.
I agree. I mean, mending fences, it's way worse than that. That's like an eighth of what it is. It's and from an organizational standpoint, I know there's some people with the Eagles who were not happy with whoever Wentz was talking to, and all these reports coming out about Wentz wanted to be traded. He'd be willing to take, and his agents would be willing to, work with the Eagles, which is fine. That's good to know. But to do this when the coaches are coaching for their jobs with 4 weeks left, 3 weeks left in the season, it's just not advisable. I know when if Wentz looks like it, his response to what I just said would be, wait a minute, this is the same team that there was a report during the season that my practice habits weren't good from NFL.com report. So right. I guess he probably felt, and again, I'm speculating. I don't know the guy, but I'm using empathy here. I could certainly understand how he was hurt. And again, as we said at the top here, both sides are at fault here. It's really pathetic that this most likely is going to be it. Wentz has probably played his last, it's just an opinion based on Geoff and I and our intel.
Right.
Most likely he's played his last down for the Eagles. It's just disgusting to me. I can't, I'm sorry. I don't, it bothers me, as someone who loves football. This guy's so gifted, and so many people are at fault here. It's just, but again, no matter what they get, even if they get great compensation, it doesn't. You rarely get guys like this talent of this level, and he looks like it's a real good chance he's walking out the door here.
All right, so let's get into some of the teams that we feel will be in contention for Carson Wentz. And clearly in our story, based on the sources that we spoke to, you and I felt strongly, because we heard same things from different people, no doubt, that the Colts are believed, you get the vibe from speaking to people that they feel like the Colts have the perfect scenario to make a deal for Carson Wentz. And what makes that happen is that, they need a quarterback. They have a lot of cap space. correct?
Oh,
And
it's
I'll let you
unbelievable.
get into that
55 to
too.
60 million. Yeah.
Right.
At a minimum, it could be way more depending on what the cap is. Yeah.
Sure. And then also they're picking just low enough in the first round that they're not going to be able to get a real a great quarterback prospect like Lawrence or Zach Wilson or anything like that. So, and not to mention here, and then this is big, Adam, I'll let you go from here. I think the coaching familiarity is probably the number one of all the factors because
we wrote about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Frank Reich and Press Taylor is going to join their staff. And we know about the relationship between, both Frank and Carson and Press and Carson.
Yeah, and the Colts have a new offense coordinator who's really, really good. Marcus Brady was the quarterback's coach. He's an up-and-coming potential head coaching candidate, I'm told, by a Colts source. Really good coach. Now, if Wentz goes there, obviously this will be a challenge for him, unlike anyone he's coached, because Carson's got to be coached hard. We know that. So that would be fascinating. Again, obviously, with Frank Reich, his sort of like a big brother. It was explained to me. It's kind of the way that Carson would look to Reich. So that would be a reunion there, and that's look, that's the missing piece for the long term for the Colts because Chris Ballard, their GM, has drafted so well, and he's got a great right hand man in Ed Dodds. They do a phenomenal job. They just really need a quarterback. Probably need another receiver. Probably need another corner. And maybe another pass rusher on the outside. They're only like 2 or 3 players away from being a legit Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing that we didn't put in the story that the Colts really have that would be advantageous for Carson Wentz because we've seen it here in Philadelphia. They have an unbelievable offensive line. They have a great offensive line. Yeah, one of the best, but probably top 5. And we know,
easy.
We know Carson, when he's had that great offensive line, he's been a much better quarterback. And now they don't have great tight ends. They have good tight ends, not great ones like Ertz and Goddard.
Just okay. Yeah, they're just okay.
But maybe that they would draft one to pair with Carson if they wound up trading for Carson.
Maybe the Eagles pair Wentz and Ertz in trade. Who knows?
Oh my God, that would really hurt.
I'm just spitballing it. No,
that hurts Eagles
fans. The fact
that
you brought it up, I'm like, what's that?
That would really hurt the Eagle fan, man.
Well, Ertz is now 30, and the Colts have all this cap space. I'm just throwing it. Just kind of funny. Wouldn't that be funny if that happened? I'm sure it's a very remote chance, but what's funny, they had Trey Burton on a 1-year deal, and they've got Jack Doyle. John Hansen calls the plumber. You need 3 yards, Jack Doyle. You need 5 yards, Jack Doyle. You need 10 yards. I don't know if you're gonna get 10 yards out of him. Anyway, so that's that. Yeah. That would
Don't forget Mo Ali Cox, right?
Yeah, the former basketball player. Sure, I know the Eagles years ago liked him. What other teams do we think are? I know the Eagles and Colts have talked. So who else do we know of?
Well, you got to think the Chicago Bears would be a team.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're definitely in the mix. As multiple sources told us. Around the league. Yeah, that's kind of what we're hearing.
Yep.
And that's a reunion. Well, that's the what's the guy? DiFilippo, the quarterback's coach, is obvious. That's goes without saying. But
sure,
the bigger piece here is 2 things. Number one, they don't have a quarterback. Trubisky's contract is up. Yes, he played better late in the season, but they didn't pick up a 5th-year option. The only quarterback under contract now, this is the issue, is Nick Foles.
That's almost laughable that Nick Foles is there.
I know, and I don't know Carson's mindset. I don't know if he's willing to deal with. I know they're friends, but I mean, it is a factor because yet again, now he's got another impediment potentially. If the Bears are making a play, we'll see. We'll over the next 48 hours, I think we're probably going to learn a lot more about. Maybe in the next 24 hours.
Is there guaranteed money? This would be the 2nd year of his. Well, this is actually from the extension that he signed with Jacksonville, right?
Yeah, what happened?
The dead money should be up.
Well, no, what happened was his contract got restructured. He took a little bit of a pay cut to make it work. I actually wrote about it in our piece there. There's some guaranteed money. It's not terrible, but I'll just be fascinated to see if Chicago is really in it. Just because they have conversations doesn't mean it's going to happen. Because what happens is at this time of year, this is an unprecedented time where so many teams are needing quarterbacks. And a lot of teams want to trade them or get rid or move on from them. Mm-hmm. So if I'm Ryan Pace, the general manager, I'm calling everybody. If Howie Roseman hasn't called me, I'm calling him. And that's just the way you got to have these conversations. So
yeah.
So Nick's contract, he's got a fully guaranteed roster bonus of $4 million, and his base salary of $4 million becomes fully guaranteed on the 5th day of free agency, which would be March 21st. So yeah, $8 million basically you're looking at potentially walking away from. The guy at the very least is a good backup, but I don't know if that would work. So we're just, that's something to take a look at. But to me, the Colts make the most sense because they got the money, they got the guy in Frank Reich. But look, we don't exactly know what the conversations are entailing, and I feel strongly as I felt for 2 weeks. So at least get a first round pick. But and the people bring up the Stafford trade. First of all, folks, that involved another quarterback, Jared Goff. The Rams were able to get the Lions to take $25 million off their hands in cash and cap. That does mean something.
Yeah, it does. If there's anything to be said about the Stafford trade, I think that the fact that it happened already and so quickly here in the offseason helped the Eagles out, because all the teams that need a quarterback that we're mentioning right now and several others, right? Once Stafford crossed off the list, then you go to your plan B, right? And so I think that helped the Eagles kind of facilitate calls now as opposed to waiting, after the draft or right before. So that helps.
Because whatever teams didn't call Howie this week or the week before, he knows the list of teams because it's all been reported. He just calls them. Hey, if he hasn't heard from them, hey, listen, here's our situation. Boy, I'll tell you what I'd like to do is next time we have Joe Banner on, I want to know how these trade calls go. I love to, because he gave us the head coaching interview stuff, which is phenomenal if you watch it on ITV TV or the pod. I love to know how these trade calls. Oh my God, we have to do that for sure.
All right, other teams that might need a quarterback, Adam, and here's an obvious one, and it's funny because this team has a very long trade history with the Eagles. It's just usually in the draft, but it's the Patriots. I mean, they pick 17th overall, so they're also oh boy, do they need a quarterback. They had a disaster last year, and then they have to watch Tom Brady have to make it to the Super Bowl. It's got to be humbling.
Oh my God, it's so funny. We'll probably touch on the Super Bowl just for a couple minutes later, but I've been a huge supporter of Belichick and Brady for most of my career. I just feel like Brady's obvious, but Belichick I have a ton of respect for, despite some of the alleged cheating. I just think he's brilliant, and I always to him. And Brady always felt underappreciated. Now, seeing the way it had happened for Belichick this season, sometimes you get your comeuppance, as they say, and Bill had a bad season. He has personnel control. He orchestrated the whole thing, quite frankly.
Yeah, and they're pretty aggressive. And I think the last time they made a trade, the Eagles and Patriots made a trade, a year or two ago with the Michael Bennett deal? So
Michael Bennett, yeah, they've done. They used to do draft pick trades, they get trade, during the draft. So sure,
right. So that's another logical one. Who else strikes you as a team? I know Denver could use a quarterback, but
okay. So Denver was involved in the Stafford trade. My buddy Mike Kliss, who for News 9 in Denver, he said they were involved. There's no doubt. I mean, look, remember, George Payton's a new GM, so you would think they're going to be looking for a quarterback, which they are. They clearly are. Jacksonville's taking the first. They're taking Lawrence at 1, so that eliminate them. Now, here's an interesting one: Derek Carr and the Raiders. Okay, there was a report that a lot of people shot down, but my sense is Derek Carr's available. Why do I say that? The Raiders were not happy with Carr after 2019. They just were not. This is not a secret. They were absolutely going to sign Tom Brady had their meeting or their discussion with his. With Brady's agent gone well. I just don't think they were happy. I just don't think the information gathering they were satisfied. They just didn't think it was going to work. But they absolutely, I talked to some people with the Raiders last year. They were like, we're getting Brady. And then they didn't get Brady. So what does this tell me? Oh, yes. Did Carr have a very good year? Yes, he did. No doubt. Good, solid quarterback. Winning, he's a guy you can win with, although the defense is horrendous. Just don't have a lot of talent. I just never got this feeling like Gruden's totally bought into this guy. So we'll see. But he's got 2 years left on his deal. And the thing is, if you're Derek Carr and his agent, you're going to want his contract extended because there's no guaranteed money left.
So in other words, if you want to make a move, you make a move this year. Well, I guess most of the the guaranteed money is up, and
It's gone.
you're
It's
not.
all gone. Actually,
It's all gone, and
Yep.
you're not locked in to having to extend him, nor make him a lame duck. So
right. And his agent Tim Younger's got to want to have this extended. Any primetime quarterback like Derek Carr, who's on the edge of 30 years old, there's no way that you're playing any more seasons unless you have to. On Stafford's made way more. By the way, he was the old CBA. The crazy one with the crazy guaranteed money. So he's made millions, obviously from Tom Condon. But so that's another team.
How about the Panthers? Where are they at?
Yeah, they're in. Look, it was reported, Albert Breer reported that, and I know for a fact they were heavily involved on the Detroit talks with Stafford. So they're in Teddy Bridgewater. Here's the problem. I don't know why the hell they did this contract. They did a 2-year structure, not a one. His $17 million base salary is fully guaranteed. So they're stuck with him. No one's taking that contract. It's not going to happen.
Right.
I mean,
it's kind of like
have to pull up a miracle for someone to take that contract.
Yeah, same thing, like kind of with the Vikings, who may want to upgrade from Kirk Cousins. And I don't know that right now Carson Wentz is considered that, but
right. You ready for this contract? This is just I don't know why they did. Good job by Mike McCartney, his agent, who's the former Eagles pro personnel director, by the way. He did because they wanted to lower his cap number in 2020, so he agreed to it. But they had to extend his contract. So here's Kirk Cousins' contract. Wait till you hear this thing, okay? Okay, so this year it's not too bad. His base salary of $21 million is fully guaranteed. His cap number is $31 million because of the signing bonus proration. But here's the problem, and I don't know why they did this. They did an advance guarantee for 22. That means what happens is if you're on the roster this year on a certain date in March, your base salary next year is fully guaranteed.
Oh my God!
You ready for this one? You're not going to believe this one. So if he's on the roster, the Vikings roster on March 19th, his base salary of $35 million next year is fully guaranteed.
Wow. So in order to not have to pay that, they would have to cut him this year before March, but that would still cost them
$21 million.
$21 million against the cap.
Exactly.
Now you could
trade him.
You could do that if A, you could trade him, or B, you were going ahead with a rookie, but they're not in a good position right now unless they trade up.
Here's the problem. Let's just say, again, we're not saying this is happening. We're using a hypothetical. Not a secret. Kyle Shanahan liked Cousins for the 12 draft, whatever the hell it was. He was drafted. So anyway, obviously you'd have to trade Garoppolo, but the problem is if you get it, let's say whoever would trade for him, let's say it was the Niners, right? He has a bad year, and you're like, man, we want to get out of this contract. Too late.
Yeah.
Too late.
That's rough.
$35 million next year. You're locked in. You can't get rid of him.
No, that contract's an all but man. We talk about Carson's contract.
Mike McCartney, yeah, this is what happens when you dance with the devil with these contracts. You gotta be careful.
All right, Adam. So let's move this forward and get into our Super Bowl preview. We'll recap this whole Carson Wentz thing. We went through all the teams that need quarterbacks, what's realistic, what's not realistic. To me and you, it's got to be it's most likely the Colts or the Bears, and maybe some mystery team gets involved.
Yeah, look, this happens sometimes. A team comes out of the blue, or it's like Nick Sirianni. Who knew? Someone comes in late. As word gets out that Wentz is available, this is like a very rare chance to get a player. Yes, he's regressed the last 2 seasons, but is so incredibly gifted. He's only 28 years old. By the way, he wasn't even on the injury report the last 2 seasons. I think people have kind of lost track saying he's injury prone. But hey, look, the guy's available. And, I'm sure the Eagles will not take less than a 1 and probably plus more than that. That's if it gets done like you and I think it will. Should be more than a 1. Who knows? Heck, of course, if it's Indy and Chicago, aren't they picking back-to-back? Or something like that, close to back-to-back?
I think it is like 21 and 22. Yeah, something like that.
So that doesn't help. But look, it's still a first-round pick. We'll see. If it's another team, we'll see if there's anyone in the top 15 that's willing to do it, or who knows. But the Colts make the most sense to me. And the one of the teams that we spoke with that didn't get – they were in the Stafford race. So there was one of the teams that didn't get them. They'd said that because they did their study on – available cap space for teams that are looking for quarterback, particularly in free agency, and This guy said, this high-ranking league source said, listen, Wentz to the Colts, if you're talking teams that make the most sense, they by far, it's funny, he didn't even bring up Reich. He goes, look, they could take the contract if they want as is and don't have to do anything with it.
Right.
Then I explained it. He goes, what do you think about it? I said, well, the Reich connection is obvious. And then obviously you throw Press Taylor in. I'm like, bingo. And remember, Frank Reich got his guy, Philip Rivers, who he's with the Chargers. So it would only make sense, but we don't have access to what's actually going to happen. So we'll see.
Right. And the high-ranking source I spoke to also noted that he said, the Colts know that they have that coaching cushion that makes it a perfect marriage with Frank Reich and Press Taylor being there. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it could happen while people are listening to this podcast. You never know. The news could break. Sure. It could be sooner.
Stafford
than later.
Last Saturday night at 10:00. Really? Did you have to
right?
do that?
I know.
Anyway.
Well, it was only 7:00 on the West Coast, I guess, right? So it wasn't
right. But for it to be completed, two things have to happen. Any trade, physicals must be taken. Or physical in this case, if it's only Wentz involved in it. And then it can't be official until March 17th at 4 p.m. Eastern. Then it'll be official, obviously. So I don't want to say I'd be shocked if Wentz is back. I'd be surprised. I just, you and I are kind of sharing the same brain here. I think they're kind of at the point where, you know what, get the most you can get and move on. And I think fans probably would feel the same way. I think it's just a marriage that has not gone right the last year or so. And I think both sides need to move on.
There you go. All right. But don't move on from us. And please make sure you're checking out our friends, phlsportsnation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all of the professional Philadelphia sports teams like nobody else. For the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. So make sure you're checking out all their coverage, their content, their podcasts at phlsportsnation.com. You can find them at Twitter at phlsportsnation. Let's pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. All right. Remember, if you do go to Sky Motor Cars, tell them that Adam and Geoff sent you. All right. Let's talk about the Super Bowl, Adam. There's a really an obvious Eagles tie-in here with all those guys, Andy Reid and Brett Veach and everybody over there who came from Philadelphia.
Mark Donovan,
the president. Yeah.
Who else are we thinking? Obviously, all the coaches.
Oh, I mean the head trainer.
Rick Burkholder. Yep.
Burkholder. Yeah.
Who else?
Oh,
anyone else?
Mike Kafka.
Yep, on his staff. Yes.
Yep. Greg Lewis.
Yep, that's another. There are a couple guys that did, but the Andy Reid coaching tree is unbelievable. It's been incredible. One of the best coaching trees. Now, even if the guy was only there for a year or two, it still counts. Okay, with Andy, we're counting that. But
so like Ron Rivera.
right, exactly. Sean McDermott obviously counts. So he was, and you know what's amazing? What a story Sean is. Andy fires him. And he just rebounds incredibly well with Rivera. Ron Rivera hires him as his DC, and Sean reinvents himself. Steve Spagnuolo, of course, took a couple years off. I saw Steve, I think 2 or 3 years ago. I remember he said he wanted to get back in coaching. And boys, he done that. Wins a Super Bowl in his first year as the DC.
Wow, he's chasing his third Super Bowl ring as a DC, isn't he? That's pretty impressive.
Giants. Last year, we back to back with the Chiefs. It could get what a great guy, by the way. Spags is awesome, as you know.
Wonderful guy. I wonder how many defensive coordinators have multiple Super Bowl rings with different teams. I'd have to look at that.
Yeah, exactly. Would have to look at it. You know what's interesting about Leslie Frazier, who's part of the Andy tree? I think I'd have to double check. I believe he won a Super Bowl with the Bears, 85 Bears. I think he did. Former Vikings head coach Brad Childress, former Vikings head coach.
Wait, wasn't Rivera on the 85? I thought it was Rivera was on the 85 Bears. Yeah,
I think Frazier was too, but you know.
Oh wow, okay.
David Culley. How about David Culley? It's 66 years old.
Man, I'm really a lot of people, Eagles fans, don't. I mean, they know. I guess they've read it lately that Culley was on Andy's staff here. He was a wide receivers coach.
Oh, many years. Yep.
Awesome guy. Just a tremendous guy. I'm really happy for him. I think it's a weird hire only on age because they got to kind of build a program there, and he's already 66. But nonetheless, awesome guy. His players always loved him. Charisma, leadership, smart guy, everything. If he was
got
50,
great command,
if he was 46, this would be one of the greatest hires. I know. It's just very strange from that.
Hey,
regard.
I think it's cool. Obviously, Harbs, John Harbaugh. Great. What an amazing story. And Pat Shermer twice was the head coach, former Eagles longtime assistant under Andy and then Chip Kelly. Matt Nagy, who's head coach of the Bears, obviously, was with Andy in Kansas City. And don't forget Todd Bowles, interim D coordinator after Juan Castillo got fired.
Wow, that is crazy. So that means it would seem like Andy had to go through so many different of his acolytes there, just including just to get to the Super Bowl, right? Did they have to play the Bills? I can't remember. Did the Chiefs wind up playing the Bills, or did that not happen
this year
in the playoffs?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he had to go through. Right, he had to go through Sean McDermott.
Yep.
Get to the Super Bowl. Now he's got to go through Todd Bowles.
Yep. Pretty amazing. So, and then just the assistants. You might his son Britt Reid. You might remember Tom Melvin, the tight ends coach, who was here with Andy.
God, is he out there still?
Yep, he's still doing it. And here's
unbelievable.
Andy is loyal. Barry Rubin, remember Barry Rubin?
Oh, the strength and conditioning guy, right?
Nailed it. Yeah, exactly right. Britt's is he's an outside linebackers coach.
Wow, that's cool. Good for Britt.
Yeah, Kafka's the quarterbacks coach. He's the OC in waiting. And then who else? Travis Crittenden, who was with the Eagles here as a assistant special strength and conditioning assistant. He is again.
Forgot about that.
Right. And then if you look at their sort of like I don't know what you call it, their front office staff. We mentioned Mark Donovan, obviously, who's a president who Joe Banner hired, by the way, in Philly.
Mike he's like Bradway, the Don Smolensky of the Chiefs.
Correct. Mike Bradway is assistant director of player personnel. Might remember Mike here, who started his career with Philly.
His father is Terry Bradway, the former GM of the Chiefs. Yeah.
Right, who I believe retired. It was the GM of the Jets. Yep.
That's
who
right,
else
Jets.
Who else do we have? Anyone else that we see here?
I don't know. Is Carl Peterson still hanging around Kansas City?
No, he's gone. He's gone. That's so funny you say that. Carl I met 30 years ago, man. Nice man. When he left the Philadelphia, what was the Stars? He became the publisher of Philly Sport Magazine.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, and I love that magazine, man. That was awesome. There's a great cover. Pete Peters, number 33, is the Flyers goalie. Those of you over 50 remember this, I'm sure, because I know they're going to say it. They're going to. People. One of the things I love about the YouTube message board is that people, we'll bring up something when people are growing up, and they'll like this. What I'm saying now. It was that cover. It was Dr. J, and Ron Jaworski. Jaws had it in his office at NFL Films for many years. Great cover from the early 80s of Philly sport. Yeah, that's about it from the Eagles and Chiefs ties. But look, how do you see this game? Let's get to the game. How do you see it?
So I don't like to bet against Patrick Mahomes. I think that what they've done is phenomenal, and he's phenomenal, of course. But there comes a point, right, where you start to hemorrhage in a certain area because of injuries, and it becomes really untenable. And I can't ignore the fact that the starting right tackle, the starting left tackle, and I think even two more interior linemen are all shelved, right? I think they're starting 4 backup offensive linemen.
Yeah, they're getting away with it. Like, they've gotten away. And the most amazing thing is Stefan Wisniewski has a chance to get yet another Super Bowl ring. I've never seen anything like this.
I know, it's unbelievable. So yeah, that to me, against a Tampa Bay front that has gotten better as the year has gone on. They get Vita Vea back, and I'm a big Vita Vea fan.
Yeah, he played great in the last game. Greg Cosell talked to him this week. He said he looked like normal. In fact, Mahomes was talking about him. He was talking about him. I was surprised this week. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he stands out. I mean, he was a first-round pick. He's a good player, and they're getting. It sounds like Winfield's going to give it a go with the ankle. I mean, that they're getting healthier. I know there are a couple of guys out on that defense, but Shaq Barrett, JPP, Vita Vea, and they're going to come at them. And we've seen, right? We remember the Giants versus the Patriots. We've seen that even the most high-powered offenses sputter when offensive lines have trouble blocking the pass rush. So I don't like to bet against the Chiefs. My heart is with the Chiefs. I want to see them win, get this new dynasty going, but I'm leaning toward Tampa right now, Adam. I think that things are shaping up in their favor. Yeah,
so the Bucs actually have their whole defense with Vita Vea back there. They're all healthy. If if Whitehead plays with that shoulder, which they may have to harness that up, that'll be their starting 11. Jamel Dean, their slot corner, he missed the first matchup against the Chiefs when the Chiefs went out. Chiefs went in and absolutely embarrassed the Bucs. This is when their secondary is playing awfully, really bad. Sean Murphy Bunting, number 23, who he's been terrific in the playoffs. He had a rough ending of the season, regular season, but they're playing great. Devin White was on the COVID list. He missed time. He's back. You mentioned Vita Vea. He's back. The one issue that I have, and there's a good prop bet, which I do once a year. I do this stuff. I have fun with it. It's Super Bowl. Might as well. If I was in Vegas, I would do the same thing. Do some prop bets. Couple bucks. I like the over half a sack for Chris Jones, because if I'm Spags, I get him on Aaron Stinney, number 64, who's filling for Alex Kappa, the right guard for the Bucs. I mean, he just needs a sack. If he gets a sack, and it's actually, the number's really good. It's very favorable. It's worth putting down a little bit on that.
Sure, and it's not like Brady is such a mobile quarterback that he can escape good.
Exactly,
good pressure,
and by the way, he's been awful. The thing that shocks me is how bad he's been against the blitz. Mahomes is number 1 against the blitz in the National Football League, 134.2 passer rating. Okay, third lowest blitz, by the way, only 21%. But Brady, yeah, right. well, okay. So do you think Bowles will bring it?
Yes.
Really?
When has Todd Bowles not brought it? I mean, that's his identity.
Well, here's but here's the question. Do you play coverage and just disguise the hell out of it just to make them hold on to the ball? I don't know how you do it. This guy's unreal.
I don't know. If I'm Todd Bowles and blitzing got me to the Super Bowl and they've got 4 offensive linemen down, I'm gonna do what I do best. And just, if I lose, I lose, but at least I'm gonna, I'm gonna cater to what I do well.
Right. Look, Duvernay Tardif's out. The Duvernay Tardif opted out. The 2 tackles are out. I mean, they're playing the Allegretti, Ryder, and Wiley are very marginal starters. You're right. Look, the Bucs, but his mobility, Mahomes' mobility, they've been able to get through with it, and they're going to play Martinez Rankin at right tackle, not left. Remmers is going to move from left to right. I mean, right to left. Mike Remmers is the guy who got housed by Von Miller.
Von Miller. Yeah.
But he's been a nice story. That's a good, look, I know they were behind the 8 ball here. They had to sign him. He's number 75. He's done a decent job, but I'm with you, man. I really want to pick the Bucs. It's a really hard call. What's the line? 3 points now?
3 points. Yeah.
And I know they're going to be about 25 to 27,000 people allowed. It is a Super Bowl, so the home team does not exactly get all the seats. They'll disperse it.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I do think it's going to be a lower scoring game than people think. Now, the over-under last I checked was 56 on DraftKings.
Right.
But I think that there's going to be a slower flow to this game. I think the injuries play a part of that, and just the feeling out process. I know it sounds weird because you have 2 really good quarterbacks, but if you go back and look at a lot of the Super Bowls, even with these high-powered offenses, they're not always 35. They're not always like Eagles Patriots.
Underwhelming. I know that game was unreal. Just so you folks, before we get out of here, when you're watching the game, things to look for: the Chiefs play the third most amount of dime in the NFL at 35%, which is 6 DBs. You're going to see L'Jarius Sneed, who's been a great rookie for them. He's all over the place. They move him around. He's their nickel corner, but they really move him around. They do a great job with him. So look out for that. And then you mentioned it with Todd Bowles. Their blitz rate is super high. They've 47 of their sacks are on blitzes. Okay, tied for third in the National Football League. They blitz a really high number, second highest in the National Football League regular season, 38.1%. So you're right. They're going to blitz. They don't really play dime. Less than 1% in dime. Nickel, 62.5%. So you'll see Jamel Dean is their nickel, who'd be on the field a lot, because the Chiefs are almost always in 3 receiver sets, 72% of the time. So there you go. There's your preview.
All right. There's one more thing I want to get to with you first, as we're talking about it. The 55th Super Bowl is this weekend. 55, and a game this big deserves a big prize, not just some trophy. And DraftKings, the official daily fantasy sports partner of Super Bowl 55, has up to $55 million in total prizes up for grabs with their Super Bowl prediction pool. How's that for big? All you got to do is get your share of these huge prizes is enter DraftKings free Super Bowl prediction challenge. Once you submit your picks, you'll get a free instant prize up to $25,000. And if you have the most predictions correct, I know you will, Adam.
Oh, I'm doing this, man. Can we get it?
You could win the top prize of $1 million.
Oh, man, I could use it.
Download the app now and enter the free prediction challenge. Answer questions like who'll score last, and boom, get ready to make it rain. DraftKings has paid out over $7 billion to its players since 2012, so they know a thing or two about big paydays. So download the DraftKings app now. Use promo code ITB to enter the free $55 million Super Bowl prediction challenge. Everyone gets an instant prize up to $25,000 just for playing. So use promo code ITB now and enter the free $55 million Super Bowl challenge. Promo code ITB. Only at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of Super Bowl 55. Terms, conditions, and eligibility restrictions are apply. See DraftKings.com for details. It's a nice.
I'm doing that, man. Put that code in ITB, man. Anything free contest, man. You gotta enter it, man.
You gotta love that. All right, I wanted to get to this with you because I have this discussion with a lot of people.
Okay.
Andy Reid has obviously gone out to Kansas City, had unprecedented success, has established himself, if anybody had any doubts, as one of the greatest coaches in the sport.
Yep.
And he very possibly could be a two-time champion here. And honestly, man, if you go back 2 years ago to the AFC Championship game, they lost to the Patriots in overtime because Brady got the ball first, marched down the field, and put points on it.
Stupid OT rules, yeah.
I know. Like, can you imagine if the Chiefs had gotten the ball first just by the coin flip, we could talk about I think that they would have beat the Rams that year, and I think we would be talking about a team going for 3 straight Super Bowls already.
Yeah.
So that's how amazing they've been. But people ask me all the time, what happened? What if Andy would have stayed in Philly? What if they didn't fire him? And
it was a mess.
It was a mess.
He had to go. He
had to go. I think he knew it's best to move on.
It's time. Yeah.
And if he stayed, Adam, I don't know that he would have been able to even reinvent himself the way he has in Kansas City. If you think about how Kansas City is run, right? Their ownership, the Hunt family.
Yep, Clark Hunt.
They hire a guy, they put the people in place, and then you never hear about Clark Hunt until they're actually hosting the Clark Hunt Trophy or the Hunt Trophy for winning the AFC Championship. Andy has been allowed to kind of bring his people in, run a harmonious operation there, and then he's been allowed to just focus on coaching. And you've seen what he's done to his offense. He hired Chris Off a long time ago, godfather of the pistol. And I don't think he would have ever been given that kind of opportunity anymore. I mean, he got it once in Philadelphia.
Well, he could hire whoever he wanted, but.
But I still think that there were decisions that are being made, and a lot of those coaching decisions at the end were out of desperation more than
it got away from Andy. That's what happened. The Juan Castillo decision was awful. Obviously, what happened is it's the same thing that happens with great coaches. Sometimes they lose their lieutenants, they lose their best assistants, and it's really hard to overcome that when you've been in the league a long time. There's only so many good guys to go around. You kind of have to reinvent yourself as a coach and also as an evaluator of your own coaches, which you and I have talked about on the show for a couple of years now. Doug Peterson was just bad at it, coaching his coaches. He needs to do if he ever becomes a head coach again, he's got to do a better job of coaching his coaches. But Doug has taken the season off, which is just remarkable to me. Walking away from $6, I think he's making $6 million a year. 12 mil, man, over 2. I'll take that.
Hey, man, I'd sit there and collect my millions as well.
Yep.
I think when Andy went out there, he immediately traded for Alex Smith. And even with Alex Smith, I think by the second year is when they drafted Pat Mahomes. They knew when they traded for Alex Smith that they were still going to get themselves a young quarterback to groom and mold. And that's
right. 17 draft, man. Andy got there in 13. Quickly traded for Alex Smith over time. And then that 17 draft, I'll just, before we get out of here, man, I'll never forget how many people did not like, a lot of guys you and I know, said, don't see it with Patrick Mahomes. He's way out there. Mechanics are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Kingsbury offense doesn't transfer to the National Football League, and it's just the air raid. And my God, and I understand that he's unorthodox. And as one defense coordinator told me, you cannot mimic what he does in practice. No matter how many times with the service team you try it, it doesn't work because you can't think like him. Okay.
Right.
And it's just really remarkable. They're 14-2. One of them was that crazy Raider game. It was like 38-30 or something like that in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think they also lost to Green Bay. But it's tight, man. I got it. I got it. Chiefs 30, and the other team, the Bucs 24. And I'm agreeing that would be under. By the way, that would be under. I'm sort of agreeing. And the weather's going to clear up. By the way, it's going to be fine by game time. Fine by game time.
Thank you, Tropical Storm Caplan. We were waiting for that update, and I'm very surprised that you did not mock me earlier when I said it was going to be under the total.
Oh yeah. No, you've been a little bit more reasonable lately.
My bank account doesn't agree.
Oh, there you go. Oh, hey now.
Or my DraftKings account, I should say. And I guess one thing that really stands out is how well the Chiefs are at developing their talent. You know, Chris Jones, as you mentioned before, he's a third round pick.
Sounds right.
Yeah, I think he was a third round pick, and he's one of the best tackles in the league. They make smart free agency, like Tyrann Mathieu. Nailed it.
Oh yeah! Wow, Honey Badger. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Sammy Watkins has been what they needed him to be. You know, he didn't have to come in and be a star.
He has 2 big games this season, and he's hurt. And that was an awful
He had a big
contract
Super Bowl last year, though.
He did, but awful contract. That one. I think they would admit that was a bad one.
I don't know because he was so big last year in the Super Bowl. But yeah, you're right. He has not performed the contract.
But no, but look, Kelsey's unreal. I mean, Hall of Famer.
Right.
He's going to go down one of the best tight ends in NFL history. Tyreek Hill, they stood by him. Typical Andy stands by his players. I give him credit. Look, hey, guy's awesome. He's an incredible football player. We'll see about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We had Brett Veach on, by the way, in the summer. He gave us sort of a preview of we had him on ITB TV. And then, by the way, Jason Light. How about Jason Light. Yeah, Jason Light. And I'll tell you, Jason, and I give ownership credit. They clearly, over a series of years, they just were not making the playoffs under Jason. And if you look at his last 3 drafts, are phenomenal.
Wait, now you can't say 3.
Well, a lot of them are so many of the players they've drafted.
I know, but they were hurt for a while by the kicker in the second round.
Well, no, Aguayo, no question. Second round, that was just, hey, listen, it is what it is. Terrible.
But you're right. They have the linebackers is good.
Oh, Devin White's a stud.
Right.
But the tackles, Ali Marpet.
Good one. That is true.
Yeah. The
Donovan Smith, was he a draft or?
Donovan Smith was drafted. Oh yeah.
Right.
And Wirfs, the first round pick, who's really good. The right tackle. Godwin's a stud from Penn State in Middletown, Delaware. Correct. Mike Evans, he also drafted number 13.
Yeah, Brate is one of their guys.
Undrafted.
That's fair.
That story of Cameron Brate, I'll never forget it. He was with the Vikings as an undrafted free agent. After the draft, they cut him. He's on the street. The Bucs have a rookie minicamp. They're running low on tight ends. They called his agent, said, "Hey, we need a tight end. Who do you got?" Cameron Brate from Harvard. Okay. Without that happening, I don't know if he ever makes it. And they he signed a big mega deal. It was like $7 million a year. It's 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
But Brade and OJ Howard, by the way, towards Achilles, he's on IR. Look, and
that's amazing. Really, honestly, think about it. I mean, you're watching this game as an Eagles fan. You're seeing 2 of your former front office guys going up against each other as GM.
True.
Your former head coach, both of your former defensive coordinators, Bowles and Spags.
Think about Brett Veach, a former coach's assistant. That was his first job.
Yep.
He was just trailing Andy. It was like it was just like the guy was like behind him. You would always see him behind him. Like, what is this guy doing?
Yep.
And
Andy would trust him with some scouting reports while he was basically getting Andy's coffee.
Yeah.
And he was really impressed with him, and he kept moving him up and
brought him to Kansas City.
Yeah, brought him with them to Kansas City. So yeah, what a crazy Eagles tie there is from both of these teams in the Super Bowl. All right, before we get out of here, so I'm putting you on the spot. Who's winning?
So I got it. Chiefs 30, Bucs 24. You?
I have it. Oh man, I'm gonna say
you said Bucs
27, Chiefs 24.
All right, 51. Okay, so we both
But I want
like
the
it
Chiefs
under.
to win.
What's that?
But I want the Chiefs to win. I would like to see the
I'm
Chiefs
kind of
win.
pulling for the Bucs.
Really?
The
You want
reason
Brady
is
to have
this.
another? It's been a while for Brady.
I mean, all right. So coming into last, you'll laugh. Who do you think I picked before the season 2019 to get to the Super Bowl? I just kind of gave it away the lead, but go ahead.
The Bucs.
No,
No.
2019 season.
Oh, last year you probably picked the Chiefs and the Saints. I don't know who.
Chiefs, Eagles.
Chiefs. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I picked the Chiefs to win, so I actually got it right. But of course I didn't get the Eagles right. This year I picked the Saints, Chiefs before the season started. I have to go back and look. I had it with the Saints. I've had it. I'm done picking them. I don't know what the hell the problem is. They're so talented.
I had Seahawks, Chiefs.
Oh, did you? Seahawks. Okay. Wow.
This year, so okay. I wasn't much better. I've had it with them too.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Everybody's probably had it with us by now. So that'll do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in the Eagles Intel. Hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, enjoys the Super Bowl. Big thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody. You can check out his work on his YouTube channel. It's called Sports Talk with Broads. Check him out on Twitter @Broads81. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds.